All right, now the good stuff, my favorite part, the three foods that create health. That's actually, I called my book Create Health because this is not about fighting disease as I talked about. This is how can I create the most amount of health? Because you can do the actions that cause and create disease, or you can do the actions that create health. Well, now we're finally going to get to my favorite part. Like I said, the foods that create health. And so this is really, I'm going to map out my whole Autoimmune Foundation's protocol with this. All right, but this is simple and straightforward, so much so that a lot of people are going to think, man, this almost looks too easy, too simple, right? But that's the beauty of it, is its simplicity. So the number one food, okay, if you take nothing else from this whole entire class series, the number one food that creates health is fruit. It is the ideal food for humans. Okay, there's a reason that the Bible started in the Garden of Eden and what there was fruit. Okay, that is the original human diet. Okay, and if you look at the animals that have the most similar genetic makeup to us, which are going to be primates, okay, chimpanzees and bonobos, what is the primary staple of their diet? It's fruit. Okay, because we have the exact same physiology as them. All right, we have opposable thumbs that can grab fruit from a tree. If you look at a carnivorous animal, they just have claws. They have no way of like grabbing fruit off of a tree. Okay, carnivores have black and white vision, but humans and hominid apes like chimpanzees and bonobos have color vision, so they can see fruit growing on trees. Okay, we have similar teeth that are designed for chewing, but only fruits and vegetables. Not, we don't have the big sharp incisors that can tear meat off the bone. Okay, we don't have claws that can rend flesh. We're not equipped as natural hunters. We have to use tools to do that, right? Our bodies, our physiology is designed to consume fruit. Okay, our digestive tract is long, which allows it to absorb all the nutrition in fruit, whereas a carnivore or an omnivore's digestive tract is very short because there's worries of the meat putrefying and rancidifying in their system, so they have to process it through really quick. Okay, with humans, with frugivores, which we are, which is a taxonomy of primary fruit eaters, that's what we are. We have a long digestive tract. Okay, and now the similarities go on and on. Okay, but physiologically we are designed to eat fruit. Fruit also has the optimum nutrient profile for humans. Okay, it's got the vitamin A, B, C, E, and K. All right, vitamin D is a hormone. Okay, vitamin D is not really a vitamin. It's a hormone that your body creates when it's exposed to sunlight. So you need sunlight. Okay, and just because you can get vitamin D or hormone D from eating another animal that was exposed to sunlight doesn't mean that the best way to get it isn't just by being exposed to sunlight. Okay, so fruit. Let's see what else. Um, Fruit is appealing in its natural state. Okay, you see peaches growing on a tree; they just look cool, right? Bananas growing on a tree. You want to take it. You see the watermelon growing in the patch. You want to eat it, right? You, they make all these artwork out of fruit, right? Like literally, they make these flower bouquets out of fruit. They make all these displays in the grocery store out of fruit. You don't see them stacking the meat, right? Or the milk. Like, no, it's because fruit is drawn for artwork. Okay, it's naturally appealing to humans in its natural state, and it's consumable in its natural state. You don't need to do anything to it. You don't need to cook it. You don't need to add any seasoning into it to make it taste better. It just is good in its natural state when it's ripe. And so that's how all animals in nature get their food, is they just consume it in its natural state. They don't prepare it, they don't cook it, they don't season it, they don't add anything to it, and they typically eat one ingredient at a time. Whereas humans, we've invented all of these ways to dress up food to make it look more appealing, but fruit, we don't actually need to do that, right? But then you take something like A1 steak sauce, right? You add this to your steak to make it taste better. Okay, well, what are the main ingredients in A1 steak sauce? Well, 3 of the 5 top ingredients are fruit: oranges, tomatoes, and I can't remember the last one. But it's use fruit to make your meat taste more like fruit, because that's what humans naturally want to eat. Okay, and so the other thing is that when we were talking about the but it's got fallacy previously, right? Like, there are no downsides to it. There's nothing in it that's harmful to you. And you're going to say, oh, Dr. Ben, what about the sugar in fruit? Okay, every cell in your body runs on glucose. Okay, every cell in your body, your brain, in fact, your red blood cells run exclusively on glucose. Okay, it is the energy currency of the body. Your body has to break it down to make ATP to make energy. Do you think that that's bad for you? Well, when it's in refined form, like we talked about in the previous class, when it's refined sugar, when it's a white sugar that has no vitamins, no minerals, no fiber, okay, no phytonutrients, no enzymes, no coenzymes, okay, fruit's got all of that. Phytonutrients are a specific class of nutrients that we don't even know what they really all do, okay, but they're only found in plants. Lycopene's one that you may have heard of, okay. It creates a natural red color, right, and it has anti-inflammatory properties, but there are a bunch of other ones that haven't even been discovered by science yet. You can't get that from any other type of food, okay? And so a lot of people are concerned of like, okay, well, isn't it going to spike my blood sugar if I eat a lot of fruit? Well, you might think that, but fruit has something called fiber, okay? And fiber slows the absorption of the fruit into the sugar in the fruit into the bloodstream, so there's never a sugar spike, okay? If you think about anybody that you know that has diabetes, did they get it from eating a lot of pineapple and mangoes? No. They probably got it from eating a lot of the foods that we talked about in the last video, okay? So, fruit has a great nutrient profile and no metabolic waste byproducts, okay? So, it is the least toxic thing you can consume along with the next food that we're going to get into, okay? Meaning that it burns clean energy, okay? So, just by consuming it instead of these other foods, you're lowering your toxicity exposure, right? And the more you can lower that toxicity exposure, then eventually the body can get to the point where it can clean house of the backlog of toxicity that's accumulated over the last years and decades. Okay, anything else I want to say about fruit? Just looking at my notes here. Fruit is very easy to digest, okay, when it's ripe, right? Now, some of you don't know when fruit's ripe. You're eating your bananas when they still got green on them. You're, eating your peaches when they're still rock hard. The fruit's got to be ripe. And then if it does, it digests easily because the simple sugars break down easy. The fiber aids digestion. The fiber is actually really important for digestion, not just for pooping, not just for slowing down the absorption of sugar like we just talked about, but the fiber in the fruit also feeds the good gut bacteria. In fact, I was just talking today with a colleague who mentioned that there are certain good gut bacteria that the only thing that feeds them is like 2 different fruits, pomegranate and blueberries, right? And so if you're not consuming those fruits, you're not getting that beneficial gut bacteria, okay? So the fiber in the fruit is the food for the good bacteria that are going to keep your body healthy, okay? Let's see, what else? Okay, so the fruit is naturally high water on its own, okay? And what's beautiful is that the water is structured water, meaning that it has a certain shape that the water molecules bond together in a certain way that's structured, all right? Now, you may have heard they try to replicate this thing in things like Kangen water systems and these water filters and these things that structure water, right? Well, the water is already structured in the fruit. You're basically buying a $10,000 machine to replicate what's already happening in nature. All you need to do is consume the fruit, okay? And so the other thing is that fruit is one of the best things for the environment to grow because it literally grows on trees, right? Trees consume carbon dioxide and produce oxygen for us to breathe. They naturally sequester carbon, right? And they produce fruit every year, okay? And so the more fruit that you want to eat, the more fruit trees you got to grow. The more trees that you grow, the better it is for the planet. That's more oxygen for everybody and less carbon dioxide, right? Fruit and fruit trees are a giant win, a giant series of wins with literally no downside, okay? And so here's the thing. It is first on the list because it is most important, all right? On the Autoimmune Foundation's protocol, you are consuming fruit as your primary staple. You're eating entire meals of fruit. And we'll get into how to do that. But this is not just like, oh, eat another apple with my ham sandwich. This is sit down to an entire meal of fruit, as animals do in nature, okay? We're so programmed to think, oh, fruit's a snack. Fruit's something that I put on my cereal. Fruit is something that's just on a snack plate. No. if you want to heal autoimmune disease, fruit has got to become a meal, right? It has got to become the primary focus of every meal that you eat, okay? With you consuming meals that are entirely fruit. Normalize that, okay? This is the healthiest food on the planet, okay? So, food number 2 that creates health, that reverses autoimmune disease. Leafy greens. All right, not rocket surgery here, right? We know that green vegetables are good for you. This should not be news to you, right? Now, here's the thing, is that the more tender and leafy the greens are, the more you're going to be able to absorb the nutrition in them, right? So the lettuces, the celeries, the spinaches, the baby greens are going to be the best nutrition, right? Because they're going to be the easiest to digest. They have the tenderest fiber, right? And they're going to be easiest to absorb the nutrition in them. Not that things like the kale and the cabbage and the broccoli are bad for you, right? But nutritionally, the most bang for your buck, the most bioavailable, and the best to absorb is the tender leafy greens, okay? Just eating a salad every day, okay? And these things, when your palate is right, taste good in their natural state, okay? So, like fruit, has a very good nutrition profile, okay? All the vitamins, all the minerals. The leafy greens have even more minerals, okay? We're talking about, hey, we need things like calcium, okay? Calcium is a mineral. It grows it's found in the earth, okay? The vegetables and the fruit sequester the minerals out of the earth and into their leaves, right? And into them. So leafy greens are going to be your best sources of all your calcium, your magnesium, all of your minerals that you need, okay? They're going to digest easy. The tender leafy greens digest extremely easy, all right? And if you don't like eating them, you don't like salads, there are other ways you can get them in, blending them in like we'll talk about. What else do I want to talk about here? Just like fruit contains structured water, all right? Now, something like the USDA recommends that Americans get 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, which is nothing, okay? On the Autoimmune Foundation's protocol, you're probably getting 25 to 30 plus servings of fruits and vegetables a day, which is really the ideal amount for humans. 5 is barely cutting it. Most Americans still get less than 2. Where do they get those fruits and vegetables from? Well, take a guess. Number 1, French fries, okay? So potatoes, what are they fried in? Oils, right? Probably seed oils, like we talked about. Super high omega-6 content, okay? Roundup, refined food oils, just fat with no vitamins or minerals in it. The oil that's fried in probably has more calories than the actual potato themselves. And then the other thing is ketchup, right? Ketchup is a refined food. They add a bunch of refined sugar to it. They add a bunch of artificial ingredients. Not a health food either. This is where Americans are getting their fruits and vegetables from, okay? No wonder we're super diseased. You want to be eating stuff that grows off of a tree or out of the ground, okay? I almost feel silly making this video, right? Like, wasn't it in kindergarten that the teacher taught you that fruits and vegetables were the healthiest food? And now you're like, an hour plus deep into these classes and we're talking fruits and vegetables are the healthiest food. I think sometimes we forget, like we're looking for the shortcut. We're looking for, Dr. Ben, what's the real answer? No. Eat fruit in mass quantity, eat leafy green vegetables in mass quantity, and cut out all the other foods that I showed you in the last class, okay? What else do I want to say about vegetables? Okay, so here's the thing. Most people cook their vegetables, all right? Is that the end of the world? Is that a death sentence? No, but there's way more nutrition in them when you consume them raw, okay? You destroy a lot of the nutrients. Are cooked vegetables still good for you? Yes, but if you want to heal autoimmune disease, right, if you want to eat the most optimum diet, it's going to give you the best chance of reversing your disease. You want to eat those vegetables raw, okay? Now here's the thing, is that I have a lot of clients that work with me. They're actually vegetarians or vegans, right? Doesn't mean they're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, right? Because there's all these vegan and vegetarian processed foods. There's the fake meats. There's the the seitan and the tofu and the tofurkey and the Beyond Meat and the Impossible Burger. All these things are heavily processed foods which contain a lot of the ingredients we talked about in the last class. And so I have clients that come to me, they're already vegan and vegetarian and still struggling with health issues, right? But when we get them on the optimum plant foods, which are fruits and leafy green vegetables, then their health turns around, okay? So just because you're a vegan or vegetarian, remember there's vegan pizza, you know, vegan cheeseburgers, where like it's 2025 now. It's like pretty much any unhealthy food that exists in the standard American diet, you can make a vegan version of it. Doesn't mean it's healthy, right? It's still made out of, the GMOs and the refined foods, just not the animal products, right? Well, you got one of the three unhealthy foods out of there, but you still got the other two, right? This is what you got to be eating if you want to reverse disease. Okay. What else did I want to talk about there? Okay. So, like I talked about, it's the tender leafy greens, okay? The baby greens, the lettuce, the celery, okay? Not that there's anything wrong with the kale and the spinach and the broccoli, but a lot of times those can give you gas, give you indigestion, because they've got a lot more insoluble fiber, the really rough fiber, okay? Which can, especially for people with sensitive digestion, can be really rough on their intestinal tract. So they're kind of a second best, okay? The best is going to be the tender leafy greens, okay? And if you notice that like chimpanzees and bonobos, they just eat the leaves, right? They don't eat the roots or anything other part of the plant, okay? They just eat the leaves. So the tender leafies are going to be the best part. But in general, I'm not going to disparage vegetables, right? Like the best is going to be raw tender leafy greens, right? Cooked isn't as good. Non-tender leafy isn't going to be as good, okay? But they're still health promoting. But if you want to reverse your disease, you want to consume lots of leafy greens, lots and lots of leafy greens. Okay, so the last one, and this is the least important of the three, but still important, is going to be nuts. Oh, we're going to try to do the ampersand. Okay, nuts and seeds. Okay. Now, what's beautiful, especially about the seeds, is that especially certain seeds, like hemp seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, are very high in omega-3s. Okay, omega-3s are the antidote to the omega-6s that we talked about previously. They are the anti-inflammatory fatty acids. So you want to be getting, because there's many different kinds of fat, right? You want to be getting the right type of fat, which is going to be from nuts and seeds. I'd say seeds are even better than the nuts, okay? Specifically, when we're talking about flax, hemp, and chia, you want to be including these in your diet in small doses, okay? No more than like a handful a day. Right? You don't want to be getting all your calories from nuts. You don't want to be eating bags of nuts. You don't want to be making meals out of like, nut burgers and nut pizzas and no. You just want, they're like an accoutrement, but they're important, right? But just in moderate doses, okay? So you can, as we'll get into smoothies, you can put them in your smoothie and stuff like that. So the nuts and seeds also contain the healthy fats, right? Now there are some nuts, and peanuts aren't a nut, that they're actually a legume. They've got a lot of mold and issues. We're talking almonds, okay, walnuts, Brazil nuts, okay, and then the hemp, chia, and flax. Those are like the best nuts and seeds, and you want to consume them in moderate doses. Like I said, about a handful a day is going to get the healthy fats into your diet, okay? Because like we talked about, the animal foods have a lot of problems. You don't want to be getting your fats from there. What else did I want to say about nuts and seeds? So the other thing is that the omega-3s, okay, this is an important point, that when we look at the omega-3s and the omega-6s, so these are pro-inflammatory, and these are anti-inflammatory. And so With the omega-3s, you've got ALA, which is found in these nuts and seeds, and you convert that into DHA and EPA. Okay. And with the omega-6s, like we talked about, you get LA, and you convert that to AA, arachidonic acid. Okay. These are the anti-inflammatory ones. These are the pro-inflammatory ones. Now, what's interesting is that the pathway to convert ALA to DHA and EPA is the same pathway as converts LA to LA. It's the same LA to AA. It's the same enzymes that are converting, right? So if you're consuming a lot of omega-6s, then it's going to occupy those enzymes and they can't convert ALA to DHA and EPA, right? So you're going to be in an inflammatory state because you don't have these anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids, right? But as the balance shifts and you consume less omega-6s and more omega-3s, your inflammation is going to come down and you're going to be able to convert more ALA into DHA and EPA, okay? So getting a good ratio of at least 1-to-1, if not more omega-3s than omega-6s. Okay, and the way that you do it, the simplest way to do that is consume seeds like flax, hemp, and chia that are high in omega-3s. Now, there is an upper limit, right? You don't want to be dumping a whole cup of them, in your smoothie or something like that. You still want to consume about a handful a day is going to be ideal. Okay, so let's see. What else did I want to say about these? Okay, so, and I just want to share, like I talked about, I've had clients, okay, like my client Nick, and we'll get into his case study later. He'd been a vegan for something like 10 years. He'd been dealing with rheumatoid arthritis for 25-ish years. And his wife found me on Instagram and said, hey, this Dr. Ben guy says you can reverse autoimmune disease on this raw plant-based diet, like fruit and leafy green vegetables and nuts and seeds. And he said, oh, that's not going to help me. I'm already vegan, right? And she kept hounding him. Eventually, after a year or two, he came around. He signed up. He signed up for my foundation's coaching program, Autoimmune Foundation's coaching program. And within about 3 to 4 weeks, his inflammation came down dramatically. This ankle that he'd never been able to run on, he was going for short runs. And he became a believer. And this was a guy who was, he was fit. He didn't look overweight. He didn't look unhealthy, but he's dealing with rheumatoid arthritis. And he thought, I'm already vegan. I'm already doing the best I can. Truth is, he's eating a lot of vegan processed foods. Switched to this protocol and was able to reverse his autoimmune disease. Was able, with the help of his doctor, come off of his biologic drug and live a completely different life. Okay, so let's get into this. Okay, Dr. Ben, now you've shown me, okay, where's the rubber meet the road, right? It's like, okay, fruits, leafy greens, and nuts and seeds. How do I do that in practicality? How do I do that in real life? So one of the biggest things is going to be smoothies, okay? Now, this is my lunch. This is my smoothie right here. What's in this smoothie? Okay, well, it's fruits and leafy green vegetables. Funny enough, and nuts and seeds. So I took filled up water up to about here, okay, and then put in about 5 bananas, ripe bananas, spotty brown ripe bananas. Okay, had about half a head of celery, had about 1 giant bunch of grapes, and 1 sprinkling of hemp seeds in there. Put in the Vitamix, blended it up. Okay, it's brownish gray. It's not an appealing color, right? But we've got the fruits and the vegetables, and honestly, with all the fruit in there, you can barely taste the celery, taste the vegetables. For those of you who have an aversion to vegetables, right, blend them into smoothies. My client Sarbjeet, you'll hear about her case study, right? She had ulcerative colitis so bad she had to quit her job, right? She didn't really like eating vegetables. What she did was she just basically consumed green smoothies 3 meals a day, which I don't necessarily recommend. If you like it, you can do that, but it's a way to get the food in, right, in an easier fashion, because you could sit down and like peel 6 bananas and like munch on the celery, right, and eat the seeds and eat the grapes, right, and be sitting there for about 25, 30 minutes plus just chewing, right? Or the blender could do the chewing for you. And now you have liquid nutrition you can consume on the go in the middle of a talk, at your desk, during work, right? In the car on a road trip, right? Smoothies make it easy by taking the chewing out and making it portable, right? and cutting down the time you need to consume the food. Okay, so smoothies, if you go on my website, there's a green smoothie guide. I put some of my favorite recipes in there, with basically just simple simple recipes. Most of them are 1 to 3 ingredients. You don't need to combine a whole bunch of things, right? Like this is 4 ingredients: grapes, bananas, hemp seeds, and celery, and of course water, right? Keeping it simple. And I told you the story of how, when I first got started this, I made smoothies just because I wanted to be lazy. I didn't want to learn to cook, and I figured a blender is just like a microwave, right? Like you open it up, you take the food, you throw it in, you close it up, you hit the button, and then a minute later your food's ready, right? But it's actually healthy food, okay? So smoothies are like the ultimate cheat code, right? Like if you gain nothing else besides eating fruit and leafy greens as the primary staple, the next thing would be to put them in smoothie form and make them easy to consume, okay? Because sitting there chewing takes a lot of time. We don't all have that, right? It's fun to sit down and eat a meal. There's nothing wrong with that, but you have to consume the quantities of fruits and vegetables to get enough calories. Smoothies help, okay? Because this blenderful is about 1,000 calories. That's one meal for a man like me who needs 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day. All right, so in addition to smoothies, another thing that I recommend and people really enjoy is what's called fruit mono meals, which is you take one type of fruit and you eat it starting when you're hungry and you end when you're full, right? So you sit down, you get a bunch of tangerines, you peel them one by one, you eat them. You get to taste the unique flavor profile of each tangerine, and they taste good until they don't taste good anymore, right? Until you're like, I'm full, this is over, right? And you don't get that thing when you eat processed foods, like, oh my God, I'm so full, or animal foods, oh, I'm so full, I have indigestion. No, the food perfectly digests, right? When you're full, you feel good, right? You don't feel like you need to lie down or take a nap because the food digests easily. You're able to break it down, okay? You're able to absorb the glucose in there, which is energy for you, right? Like digestion should not be a process that takes all this time or is painful, right? The food that you eat should digest normally. So fruit mono meals are a great one, okay? And so whether it's grapes, whether it's oranges, whether it's watermelon, whether it's bananas, mangoes, peaches, not that you can't combine foods, but there's a certain joy about just eating one ingredient at a time, like you would do in nature. In nature, you wouldn't go, okay, I'm going to find a peach tree, and then I'm going to go find a banana tree, and then I'm going to go find a blueberry bush, and then I'm going to combine them in a bowl, and then I'm going to arrange them all cute and take a photo on Instagram, and then I'm going to eat them. No. You would just get to the peach tree and eat peaches until you were full, and then you would walk away and you would go about your life. Okay? So, keeping it simple, right? The body enjoys simplicity, one ingredient at a time. You can get your variety throughout the days, throughout the weeks, throughout the months, throughout the seasons of the year, but each meal can be very simple, and it's going to allow you to enjoy it the most, taste it the most, but also absorb the most nutrition, right? You don't need to combo bombo a bunch of things, okay? No other animal in nature does that. It's not necessary, okay? Not to say you can't sit down and eat a bowl of apples and blueberries at the same time. There's nothing wrong with that, but in general, you want to keep the number of ingredients low to optimize digestibility, absorption, and your enjoyment of the food, right? Because if you put 17 things in a smoothie, chances are it's really not going to taste like much of anything at all. It's kind of like if you get a pizza with 10 ingredients on it, you're not even really going to be able to taste the pizza. You're not really be able to, your palate's not going to be able to pick it up, right? So the simpler you can make the foods, the better they're going to taste, the better they are going to absorb and assimilate, and the faster you're going to heal, okay? So what else? So I would just like to say, again, fruit is not a snack, okay? You got to think of fruit as a meal. On the Autoimmune Foundation's protocol, fruit is a meal. It is a meal 3 times a day, 2.5 times a day. It is a meal, okay? So besides smoothies and fruit monomeals, then it's big salads, right? It's using those leafy greens, creating big salads. What you would normally consider like the serving bowl of salad, that's my salad, okay, right? I'm taking a bunch of leafy greens. I'm chopping up really fine, right? Because the finer you chop the vegetables and the vegetable fruits like tomatoes and bell peppers, right, the less chewing you have to do. When you're eating a big bowl of salad, you have to do a lot of chewing if you don't chop it a lot. So my health hack on the salads is chop the ingredients as fine as you can. That means less chewing for you, a more enjoyable experience, right? Things like carrots, you want to shred them, right? Like nothing wrong with root vegetables, but you want the vegetables to be the leafy greens to be the primary part of the salad. Okay. Then instead of using a commercial dressing because they're full of seed oils and refined foods and dairy products, like we talked about in the last video, you can home make your own salad dressing, okay, with fruits and vegetables. So one of my favorites, take equal parts tomatoes, equal parts mangoes, you put them in a blender, it makes like an orange sauce. You pour that over, it's delicious, right? You want to blend a little cilantro, a little parsley, a little other herb in there, it's good, right? Another one I like to do is blend a tomato, an avocado, and an orange, right? It makes this goopy salad dressing. You can blend herbs in that one too if you want. You do it in like a Vitamix blender, make a homemade dressing, okay? So that way you're putting fruits and vegetables on your vegetables, right? And consuming those leafy greens in large amounts, right? And the other beautiful thing is that my friend Robbie Barbero says that if salad's got good fruit on it and it's got enough fruit on it, you don't need a dressing, right? Like the ultimate salad dressing is just going to be a lot of good fruit on top of your vegetables, right? That's gonna be awesome, right? This is real fundamental brass tack stuff here. We're not going to the Amazon. You get some special root that grows under some special tree, put it in capsule form, send you to the exotic grocery store to get it. No. The food that heals, that creates health, grows on trees out of the ground. It can be found in a grocery store. You don't need to be doing anything special. All right, I'm getting into growing my own fruit. Okay, just this month I got a pomegranate tree, a fig tree, and a mulberry tree, and I'm meeting with a guy on Friday to get a guava tree and a dragon fruit tree. So, growing your own food. Okay, that's like the advanced ninja level stuff. But this is the protocol. It's almost too simple, right? Like, is it easy? No, right? Is this easy to do? No, absolutely not. And so, but it is simple and straightforward in nature. Look, and if you've tried eating healthier to reverse your disease in the past and struggled, right? Or if you're really sick, you may want to consider checking out my Autoimmune Foundation's coaching program, where we work with clients one-on-one in a group setting to help them implement this stuff, to help them succeed at it, to help them build the habits so that long-term they can reverse their disease. Okay, and so there will be a link down below if you want to apply to be part of that, okay? Because like I said, this is simple, but it's definitely not easy to implement, right? And there are a lot of pitfalls you can run into. And look, you can get it right eventually on your own, probably, but if you want faster results, if you're really sick, if you know you need support in implementing this stuff, if questions are coming up faster than I can answer them on this video, you can consider applying for that. So there'll be a link down below on that. And of course, I will be doing regular Q&As on my Instagram, so you can ask the questions there if you have them. But this is pretty much the protocol mapped out. So again, if this is something you feel like you need support on, you want to check out my Autoimmune Healing Foundation's protocol coaching group, right? And you're ready to invest, you can click down the link down below to apply for that. We'll have a conversation, see if it's something you're a fit for.